You know that moment when you just snap? When years of being belittled, taken for granted, and secretly exploited by the people who should love you most finally boil over. That was me, standing in a room full of my family, ready to expose a secret that would shatter everything. For as long as I can remember, I've been Ryan, the quiet one, the unsuccessful one in our family. I'm 27 now, and honestly, my parents, my uncles, my aunts, my cousins, they've always just looked right through me like I wasn't worth their time. Every family gathering, it was the same old song and dance. They'd brag about their big houses, their exotic vacations, their perfect kids. And then there was me, the guy who never seemed to get his life together, the one without the high-paying job or the fancy trips. When I was younger, I didn't really mind. I was busy, focused on my own quiet goals. But when you're constantly the punchline, the butt of every little joke, it starts to wear you down. It gets under your skin. The real trouble started right out of college. I landed a job at a small tech company. Nothing glamorous, but it paid the bills decent enough. I lived in this tiny, run-down apartment, the kind my family probably wouldn't even glance at twice. And their comments? Oh, they never missed a beat. Must be nice to have such a cozy little place, Ryan. My cousin Karen would snicker, that fake smile never quite reaching her eyes. How's the job hunt going? My aunt would ask, as if being employed wasn't something to celebrate. What they didn't know, what they never knew, was that I was secretly helping them. Not out of guilt, but because I hated seeing them struggle, especially when they were so blind to their own problems. My parents, for instance, had racked up mountains of credit card debt over the years, always buying things they didn't need, living way beyond their means. Every few months, I'd quietly transfer money, paying off chunks of their debt. My uncle? His car was on the verge of repossession more times than I can count. I'd chip in a few hundred here and there, just to keep it from happening. No one knew. I just wanted things to run smoothly, even if it meant carrying their burdens in silence, knowing they'd never even acknowledge it. But recently, things started feeling different, uncomfortable. Their teasing escalated. They became more entitled, more openly mocking. One afternoon, Karen invited everyone over to her house. It was a weekend, and I already felt heavy with their casual jabs from the past few months. I hoped, foolishly, that maybe this time would be different. Maybe they'd finally see I wasn't as lost as they thought. Instead, it was just another show. They droned on about their expensive trips to Europe, their Caribbean getaways, their brand new luxury cars. I just sat there, head down, trying to disappear as they flaunted their successes with that casual arrogance only people who've never truly struggled can possess. Then my uncle chimed in. Ryan, still living in that tiny little apartment? He said, leaning back, a smug grin spreading across his face. What's the deal, buddy? Thought you'd be at least somewhere by now. I didn't answer right away. I was used to these comments, but something about the way he said it this time, it was like he truly believed I was a failure, that I had no right to even be at that table. It wasn't his first dig, but this one hit differently. Yeah, I'm still there, I finally said, keeping my voice even. It works for me. Then my aunt jumped in, that look she always gets when she's about to offer helpful advice. Ryan, sweetie, she cooed, her voice dripping with that fake sweetness I'd grown to despise. You really should think about upgrading. It's not healthy to keep living in a place like that. Don't you think maybe you could work harder? I don't know, try harder. The entire table went silent. For a split second, I felt like I was back in high school, eating alone in the cafeteria while everyone whispered about me. But then my uncle laughed. It was that obnoxious, self-satisfied laugh that made my blood run cold. Ryan's never going to amount to anything, he scoffed, taking a sip of his drink. I've been telling him that for years. Maybe it's time to accept it. That was it. I'd had enough. My hands started to shake, my jaw tightened. A quiet fury simmered inside me, a feeling I'd suppressed for years. But I stayed quiet. I said nothing. The conversation shifted, but the damage was done. I sat there, staring at my food, feeling utterly invisible in my own family. It wasn't just their comments anymore. It was the way they saw me. They expected me to be the joke, the failure, the guy not worth acknowledging. But I wasn't going to take it. Not after everything I'd done for them. Not after all the times I kept my mouth shut and just quietly paid their bills, hoping things would magically get better. This morning, I sent an email to all of them. It wasn't just about the money, and it wasn't just about the jokes. It was about everything. I knew that email would be a shock, but honestly, I wasn't prepared for the reaction I got. It wasn't just a letter explaining how I felt. It was a complete breakdown of every single thing I'd been doing for them. Every bill I'd quietly paid, every loan I'd secretly taken out to help with their debts. The credit card payments, the car loans, the utilities, even the medical bills my aunt couldn't afford because her husband was out of work. I wrote it all down, itemized with dates and amounts. I wanted them to see the truth, stark and undeniable, in black and white. I closed the email with something simple, something effective. Effective immediately. I wrote, I will no longer be covering any of your bills or debts. I've done enough. This is my last act of kindness to you. I hesitated for a moment before hitting send. A tiny part of me wondered if this would just make things worse, if they try to manipulate me, guilt-trip me, make me feel like I was abandoning them. But then, a much larger part of me felt a weight lift, like I was finally taking control of my own life. I didn't owe them anything anymore. I wasn't going to keep playing the silent martyr. I sent it, and then I waited. The response was predictable, but still, it was more intense than I thought it would be. Within minutes, my uncle called. His voice was tight, an edge to it I'd never heard before. Ryan, he said, almost in disbelief. What is this? You can't just cut us off like that. You've been helping us for years, and now you're acting like you never did anything? What's wrong with you? I didn't respond immediately. Hearing him talk like that, honestly, it disgusted me. But I wasn't about to get into an argument. I did it because I wanted to, I said, my voice calm but firm. But I don't want it anymore. I'm done. I could hear him sputtering on the other end. You think we don't need you? You're nothing without us. Don't you dare walk away from your family like this. You'll regret it. Maybe I will. I replied, a quiet strength in my words. But I won't regret not being your ATM anymore. I'm done. Then my phone buzzed with a message from my aunt. It was long, frantic, overflowing with guilt-tripping. Ryan, please. This is insane. We can work this out. You don't know what we've been going through. We need you. You're the only one who's been there for us. Don't turn your back on your family now. We all depend on you. I didn't respond. I knew it was just more manipulation. I had always known, deep down, that they didn't care about me as much as they cared about what I could do for them. And once I stopped giving, the true colors of my family started to show. But there was one final blow, one that hit harder than all the others. Around noon, I received a call from Karen, my cousin, the one who'd hosted that family gathering. Her voice was shaking, a mix of frustration and disbelief. Ryan, I don't know what is going on with you, she started, but you can't just leave us hanging like this. Everyone's asking what happened. Why would you do this? Why would you cut us off like this? Do you have any idea how embarrassing this is? You're ruining everything. I stayed quiet for a moment, letting her rant. I'd heard this kind of talk before, but now it felt different. This wasn't just about my family anymore. It was about me. It was about setting boundaries. It was about not letting them treat me like a doormat. Finally, I spoke up. Karen, I'm sorry it's embarrassing, but maybe you should have thought about that before you all started treating me like I was invisible. I've done more than enough for you all, and I don't expect anything in return. But I'm not going to keep enabling you. So, no, I'm not coming back to fix everything. I'm done. There was silence on the other end for a moment. When she finally spoke again, her voice was more subdued. You're making a huge mistake, Ryan. Maybe I was, but right then I didn't care. I had made my decision. The next few hours felt like a haze. I watched as my family slowly started to implode. The calls, the messages, they just kept coming, begging me to reconsider, telling me how much they needed me. But I knew what they were really asking for: control. They wanted me to stay in my place, to keep sacrificing my own happiness for their convenience. And then something unexpected happened. My mom, who had stayed quiet throughout all of this, finally called. Her voice was trembling, breaking down in real time. "Ryan, please," she said, almost pleading. "I know I've never been the best at showing it, but I need you. We all need you. You're my son. I don't want to lose you over this. Please don't cut us off. We're sorry." Her voice wavered, and for a moment, I felt myself waver too. But deep down, I knew I couldn't go back. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about me. I needed to take care of myself first for once. "I'm sorry, Mom," I said quietly, the words aching. "But this is the last time I'm doing this. I'm done." There was a long pause before she spoke again, her voice barely a whisper. "I understand. I just don't want to lose you, Ryan." And that was the hardest part, because in that moment, I realized that the only way I could truly protect myself was to walk away from everything. I hung up the phone, my heart heavy, but still resolute. I thought I'd be fine, but something about that conversation with my mom stayed with me. I wanted to believe it was the right choice, but a part of me couldn't shake the feeling that everything was unraveling faster than I could manage. The next day, I received a barrage of messages. My inbox, my phone, even my social media. My uncle sent me a message that was more than just angry. It was laced with a deep, sickening sense of entitlement. "I've been there for you, Ryan," it read, "more times than I can count, and this is how you repay me? You think you can just throw your family away because you're too proud to admit you've been leeching off us all this time?" His words felt like a slap in the face. Leeching? He'd never once asked how I was doing. He never once cared about me, only the money I could provide. Instead of replying, I simply blocked him. The last thing I wanted was to engage with him any further. Then the storm truly hit. A few hours later, I received another call from Karen. She sounded on the verge of tears, but it didn't feel genuine. It felt like desperation. "Ryan, you need to stop this. You're tearing this family apart. Everyone's talking about you, saying you've gone crazy. This isn't just about money anymore. It's about respect. You're not just cutting us off. You're rejecting us. Do you really want that?" I could hear the venom in her words now, the way she was twisting it, making it sound like I was the one in the wrong. "I'm doing what's best for me, Karen," I replied, keeping my tone firm. "You don't understand what it's like to have your entire life be about giving, 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 and never getting anything back. This isn't about money anymore. It's about my sanity." She didn't let up. "You're being selfish. You've always been selfish, and now it's worse. I guess you're just not one of us anymore, huh?" And just like that, I could feel it, the final, definitive break. I've been trying to help these people for years, but they had never seen me as anything other than a resource, a means to an end. That evening, I went to the gym to clear my head, trying to push everything out of my mind. But when I came back, I noticed something off. The front door to my apartment was slightly ajar. My heart dropped into my stomach. I stepped inside. Everything was exactly where I left it, except for one thing. A letter taped to my refrigerator with the words, "We need to talk," scrawled in familiar handwriting. I recognized it immediately. It was my mom's. I didn't know whether I was more angry or terrified as I tore open the envelope. Inside, there was a scathing letter. It wasn't a plea for reconciliation. It was an attack. She accused me of betraying the family, of throwing away everything they had done for me over the years. It was filled with guilt, but not the kind that came from love. It was guilt meant to manipulate me into feeling like I owed them something. I read through it, feeling my hands shake as I realized what had just happened. She wasn't just upset. She was trying to make me the villain in this story. She was trying to force me to cave, to return to my place as the silent, submissive son who always put his family's needs before his own. But it didn't stop there. The next morning, as I was grabbing my coffee, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was my dad. Ryan, he started, his voice surprisingly calm. What's going on? Your mom's beside herself. Your uncle's threatening to cut you out of the family altogether. Is this really what you want? You're going to end up alone. You know that. I was so tired of the manipulation, the guilt, the constant demands. I almost hung up, but I stayed on the line. Dad, I said, my voice quieter than I intended. My mom always said I'd be better off getting my life together. Well, this is what it looks like. I'm cutting ties with all of you. I'm not going to keep giving when all I get is resentment. He didn't speak for a long time. I could hear him breathing on the other end, unsure of how to respond. Finally, he spoke, his voice shaky. This isn't how families work, Ryan. You don't just abandon us. You can't just walk away from your own flesh and blood. I'm not abandoning anyone, I replied, the words coming more easily now. I'm just standing up for myself. I deserve more than being treated like a cash cow. There was a long pause, followed by a soft sigh. You're making a mistake. We'll all feel the consequences, you'll see. And then he hung up. At that point, I knew I had crossed the point of no return. They weren't just angry. They were desperate. Desperate to control me, to guilt me into continuing this toxic cycle. But there was a fire in me now, one that I hadn't felt in years. For the first time in my life, I was choosing myself over them, and it felt like freedom. But the worst part? They weren't done. Not by a long shot. The next day, as I was leaving my apartment to go to work, I saw something on my windshield. At first, I thought it was just a flyer, but then I saw the familiar handwriting again. You'll regret this, Ryan. This isn't over. I didn't recognize the handwriting at first, but when I turned the note over, my stomach dropped. It was from my cousin Karen. She'd taken it upon herself to deliver a message. I felt a sickening knot in my stomach. They were serious. They weren't going to let this go, not without a fight. The days that followed were tough. Every text, every phone call, every interaction seemed charged with tension, like the whole family was slowly closing in, each one taking their turn to attack. They didn't want to accept my decision, and it was clear now they weren't going to let it slide quietly. The final straw came when my mom called me again. This time, she wasn't even pretending to be calm. You're really doing this, aren't you, Ryan? She asked, her voice cracking with emotion. You're really just going to leave us behind like this, after everything we've done for you? I'm not leaving you behind, Mom, I said, my tone growing firmer with each word. I'm leaving the toxic energy behind. You've made it clear that the only way I fit into this family is by paying for everyone's problems. But that's not me. That's not what I want. And you should have respected that a long time ago. I could hear her sniffle through the phone, and for a moment, I wondered if I should have said something else, something softer. But I shook that thought away. I had to be strong. Don't you dare think this is easy for me, Ryan, she snapped. You think you're the only one who's been carrying the burden of this family? Your uncle is furious. You've made a mess of everything. Maybe it's a mess because we've been pretending it wasn't one, I replied. Maybe it's a mess because I was too afraid to admit how much I've been suffering under the weight of it all. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. I could feel her trying to formulate something, any argument that could pull me back into the family's web. But I had made my decision. No turning back now. That evening, I received a text from my uncle. It was a group message, and I could see that everyone was included. Karen, my mom, even some of the distant relatives. The tone was unmistakable. We're having a family dinner tomorrow night. You better be there, Ryan. We're all tired of the silence, and it's time to fix this. Fix this. They were trying to manipulate me into thinking that they had any intention of doing things differently. But I wasn't fooled. It was a trap, and they knew exactly how to pull my strings. I knew it was going to be the showdown I'd been avoiding, the inevitable confrontation. But now I couldn't run from it anymore. So I showed up. Walking into that house felt like stepping into the lion's den. The familiar smells of roasted chicken and mashed potatoes filled the air, but it was all tainted now. The moment I stepped inside, I could feel their eyes on me. My uncle gave me a nod, but it was a cold one, and Karen was glaring at me like I had personally wronged her. My mom was sitting at the head of the table, her expression unreadable. The whole room felt like a pressure cooker, ready to blow. "Ryan," my uncle started, his voice tight with restraint. "It's good to see you." He didn't sound like he meant it. "I'm sure we all have some things we need to say, don't we?" I nodded slowly. "Yeah, I think it's time to get everything out in the open." Karen, who had been quiet up until this point, couldn't hold herself back any longer. "You really think you're above all of us, don't you, Ryan?" Her words came out in a sharp, clipped tone. "You think you could just cut us all off and live your life like you're better than us?" I shook my head. "That's not it, Karen. It's never been about thinking I'm better than you. It's about realizing that I can't keep living in this toxic environment. For years, I've been carrying all of you, paying bills, covering debts, picking up the slack whenever things went wrong. And all I got in return was criticism and manipulation. I've had enough." "But we need you, Ryan," my mom interjected, her voice shaky but insistent. "We've been through so much together. We're family. You can't just walk away from us." "I'm not walking away from you," I said, my voice steady but firm. "I'm walking away from this unhealthy dynamic. I'm walking away from the constant demands, the guilt trips, and the manipulation. I've spent so many years trying to please all of you, try to be the perfect son, the perfect nephew, the perfect family member. But I've never been allowed to just be myself. And I'm done." My uncle slammed his fist on the table, his anger bubbling to the surface. "You think you've done everything for us, huh? You think we're all just some leeches who've been sucking you dry? You're wrong, Ryan. You've been selfish this whole time. This isn't about you standing up for yourself. It's about you being a coward and refusing to face your responsibilities." I didn't flinch. Maybe it's selfish of me to finally look out for myself. But you know what? I'm tired of being the only one who cares about this family. You all only care about what I can do for you. I don't owe any of you anything anymore." The room was silent, except for the sound of Karen's muffled sobs. My mom was staring at me, her eyes wide, her face a mixture of hurt and disbelief. "I know this is hard to understand," I continued, my voice softening just a fraction, "but it's what's best for me. I can't keep sacrificing my happiness, my mental health, just to make everyone else comfortable. I've been doing that for years, and look where it's gotten me." My mom's voice quivered as she tried to speak again, but I raised my hand to stop her. "It's not negotiable, Mom. I made my choice. I'm walking away from all the negativity, and I won't feel guilty for doing what's best for me." There was a long, heavy pause. The weight of my words hung in the air, suffocating the conversation. I could see the realization dawning on their faces that I wasn't going to be the same Ryan they'd always relied on. The Ryan who showed up every time they needed something. The Ryan who did everything to keep the peace. That version of me was gone. I stood up from the table, my chest tightening, but my mind clear. "This is it," I said quietly. "I'm done." And with that, I turned and walked out the door, leaving them behind. As I walked away from their house, a strange sense of calm settled over me. The chaos, the manipulation, the toxic energy, it was all behind me now. I was finally free, but I knew this wasn't the end. There would be more calls, more attempts to pull me back in. But I couldn't let that happen. Not anymore. So, I want to hear from you. Was I wrong to walk away from all of them? Am I selfish for choosing my own well-being over the family that's always drained me? Or is this just the kind of thing that happens when you've been taken advantage of for far too long? Let me know your thoughts. I really need to hear what you think about all this.